Few royal statements land quite as softly, and yet reverberate quite as widely, as the note King Charles III caused to be read on the 21st of June, the 10th International Day of Yoga. There were no trumpeters outside Buckingham Palace, no television pool cameras angled across the quadrangle, no pageantry of flunkies in scarlet tails. Instead, His Majesty's words were delivered in a garden marquee in the heart of London by India's High Commissioner, Vikram Doraiswamy, to a quietly attentive gathering of schoolchildren, yoga teachers, medical volunteers and diaspora leaders who had unrolled their mats on newly mown grass. Yet in those few paragraphs the monarch managed to braid together several threads that have come to define the opening chapter of his reign, an almost missionary zeal for holistic health, a conviction that ancient wisdom can speak to modern disquiet, and a gentle insistence that Britain's crown, an institution so often caricatured as immutable, can act as a bridge between cultures rather than as a relic of one. The timing sharpened the impact. Only 24 hours earlier court reporters had learned that the Princess of Wales, still navigating preventive chemotherapy, had reluctantly withdrawn from plans to appear at next year's royal ascot. Her decision, entirely understandable and entirely prudent, nonetheless reminded the nation of the private struggles behind the public facade. It also underscored a simple reality: health, resilience and the management of stress are not abstract notions discussed at conferences. They are daily facts of life, even for those who inhabit palaces. Into that atmosphere came the King's message. Spare in length, but generous in intention, it began by saluting the millions of Britons who now weave yoga into the fabric of their week, before widening to a global vista. Yoga, Charles observed, invites the practitioner to cultivate unity within and compassion without. It asks only a space the length of a mat, yet its echo can be felt in families, in neighborhoods, across borders. He then singled out the 2024-25 UN theme, Yoga for One Earth, One Health, arguing that it crystallizes the truth that planetary well-being and personal well-being are indivisible. A polluted river eventually pollutes the blood, the message read, just as a restless mind too easily invites violence into the body politic. Seasoned royal watchers recognized classic Charlesian rhetoric: a pinch of mysticism, a dose of ecology, a strong flavor of urgently practical moralism. For nearly 50 years, long before climate alarms became mainstream, the King, then the Prince of Wales, spoke of soil microbiomes, traditional herbal pharmacopoeias, sustainable architecture, and the holistic interplay of mind and immune system. In those days he was politely dismissed by some editors as eccentric. Now, with microplastics in placentas and mindfulness apps booming on every smartphone, the culture has largely caught up with him. The International Day of Yoga note can therefore be read as the monarch's quiet vindication, a reminder that the wisdom of the ancient rishis and the findings of peer-reviewed journals are not estranged but converging. But the text also carried a subtext. By emphasizing the importance of yoga for younger generations, the King hinted at a vision of national health less dependent on overstretched hospital wards and more rooted in preventative discipline, stretch, breath, reflection, community. It was impossible not to recall images, broadcast the same week, of crowded A&E corridors and GPS lamenting 15-minute consultations. The sovereign cannot legislate or allocate budgets, he speaks, instead, to the moral imagination. Yet speeches create atmospheres, atmospheres cultivate appetites, and appetites sooner or later shape policy. Ministers may find themselves pressed by their constituents, newly enthused about One Earth, One Health, to invest in parks, prescribe nature walks, fund yoga programs in schools or subsidize green gyms. In that sense, a paragraph read beneath a canvas awning may ripple outward to Whitehall and Westminster. Equally intriguing was the decision to have the Indian High Commissioner serve as royal proxy. Diplomatic protocol would have allowed a palace equerry, or a lord-in-waiting to read the note. Choosing Mr. Doraiswamy underscored the cultural origin of yoga, paid courtly respect to the Indian diaspora, now Britain's single largest ethnic minority, and signaled a post-imperial partnership of equals. For a monarch whose realm still contains painful memories of empire, such subtle choreography matters. It converts what could have been a pleasant, but patronizing nod to Eastern spirituality into a gesture of mutual homage. One witness called it soft power wrapped in a sun salutation. Yet even the most elegantly phrased royal essay cannot escape the gossip cycle, and inevitably commentators link the king's words to the immediate state of his own family. Courtiers are wary of drawing direct lines between Katherine's convalescence and Charles's emphasis on mindful resilience, but the public made the connection for them. Social media timelines filled with posts from yoga teachers praising the Princess of Wales for prioritizing rest and healing. Newspapers speculated, without confirmation, about whether gentle breathwork formed part of her recovery protocol. The palace, predictably, declined to elaborate. It prefers implication to exposition. In royal symbolism, what is not said can be as resonant as what is. Still, one can trace the thread. When the king extols unity, compassion, well-being, he is not merely gesturing toward abstract universalism, he is also, by implication, blessing every household where a cancer patient turns a living room floor into a makeshift yoga studio in search of relief. He is blessing, by implication, his daughter-in-law's journey. It is the monarchy's way of hugging in public without saying the word. Beyond the family circle, the note dovetails with a broader strategic direction. Insiders speak of a three-pillar blueprint guiding the reign: climate stewardship, cultural and religious inclusion, and preventative public health. Those pillars are cross-stitched through the King's Trust bursaries for refugee nutritionists, the Duchy of Cornwall's carbon-negative farming experiments, the Royal Foundation's early childhood mental health toolkits, and Prince William's Earthshot Prize grants. Throw yoga into that lattice, and you have an almost Vedic holistic chart of duties. Courtiers ruefully joke that the court circular now resembles the index of a naturopath's textbook. Of course, the British monarchy must tread carefully around anything that smells of ideology. Praise yoga too loudly and critics ask why the sovereign won't equally hail Tai Chi, or Pilates, or Christian contemplative prayer. Laud ancient Indian wisdom and you risk provoking culture war pundits, who see every Oriental reference as a threat to British heritage. The palace response is to keep the messaging ecumenical. Charles opens Hindu temples and visits Sikh gurdwaras, but he also kneels in Westminster Abbey and recites Hebrew psalms at Yom HaShoah commemorations. He elevates yoga while simultaneously praising cold water swimming in the Outer Hebrides. The unifying thread is health, not sect, not ethnicity, not party. Some ask whether the emphasis on lifestyle medicine trivializes larger structural problems: poverty, housing insecurity, food deserts, which no amount of downward dog will resolve. Advocates within the trust counter that yoga is not portrayed as a panacea, but as one accessible tool among many. In food bank queues across Britain, classes organized by community charities have become a 30-minute sanctuary, a space to breathe, literally, when life's constriction feels acute. If a mat in a church hall can lower cortisol and raise self-esteem, why would we withhold that? Asks one program lead. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales's unavoidable absences from Ascot and other forthcoming fixtures remind the nation that healing is seldom linear. The palace will not confirm her summer diary, and wise observers do not demand it. In that vacuum, the king's message, lyrical, hopeful, unhurried, acts as a gentle cue. Sometimes the most potent form of leadership is invitation rather than appearance. He invites Britons to roll out a mat, to clasp their hands in Anjali Mudra, to inhale for 4 counts and exhale for 6, to imagine the small self entwined with the great biosphere, to steward both with reverence. Thus a brief note on United Nations stationery reverberates far beyond St. James's Park. It entwines personal resilience with planetary custodianship, it gestures toward his daughter-in-law's quiet valor, it extends a diplomatic hand to India, and it stakes a claim for the monarchy's relevance in an age of holistic health. It may not feed headline-hungry tabloids, but the echo enters drawing rooms and village halls and suburban leisure centers where millions now practice warrior pose under fluorescent lights. There, perhaps, between the hum of air-conditioning units and the rubbery scent of rolled mats, Britons glimpse a crown that breathes with them. So ends one of the quieter episodes of royal communication, no balcony wave, no golden coach, yet possibly one of the most emblematic. For if a monarch's first duty is to embody the nation's conscience, then a message extolling unity, compassion and well-being belongs every bit as much to kingship as the state opening's scarlet robes. Charles has staked his reputation on that belief. The public, breathing through their next sun salutation, will decide whether his faith is well placed. ChatGPT